ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय Ramakrishnaय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of Bhagavad Gita. Dear devotees, please note that the live chat has been enabled for this video. If you have any questions relating to this discourse, please type it in the live chat and I'll try to respond at the end of today's session or in the next session. Please only use the live chat if you have any questions. Thank you. Now, before entering into the proper Gita, that is the study of the 60th verse in the second chapter. So, we will repeat one of the verses from the meditation of Bhagavad Gita. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramarthanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So now we shall study the 60th verse. We have already discussed a lot about this verse in our last class. So today we will go to study this same verse, the 60th verse, in a different perspective, taking so many different examples and stories. Now let us chant this 60th verse. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. So now I will chant it. Please repeat it after me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Blessed Lord said, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The word to word meaning, yatataha, while practicing self-control, or the people who are practicing self-control, he, for, api, even, kaunteya, for them too, Arjuna, the son of Kunti, kaunteya means son of Kunti, purushasya, of a person who is practicing self-control, even for him, vipaschitaha, one endowed with discrimination, who is very intelligent, who is trying to practice the self-control, was already perfected it to some extent. Indriyani, the senses, pramathini, turbulent, haranti, carry away, prasabham, forcibly, manaha, the mind of even such a person will be carried away violently, turbulently. So, people on the path of self-control should be careful. That is the warning given by Lord Krishna through this verse. Now, the senses are so strong and turbulent, O son of Kunti, that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person endowed with discrimination and practicing self-control. Kauteya, O Arjuna, he indeed pramathini, the powerful sense organs, indriyani, prasabham haranti, forcibly carry away, manaha, manas, our mind, the mind, api vipaschitaha, purushasya, of even a wise man, yatataha, who is striving. O Arjuna, indeed the powerful sense organs forcibly carry away the mind of even a wise man who is striving. So here Krishna says, sense regulation is not so easy. That is the idea behind it. It's little tough. So always be on the alert. As Sri Ramakrishna always used to tell the monks, sadhu, savdhan, be careful. So the process is slippery. So be careful on your path. That's what Ramakrishna used to tell the monks. Sadhu, Savdhan. Sadhu, be careful. So, because the Indriyas are so powerful, sense control is not that easy, from which we should learn two lessons. What is that two lesson we have to learn? The first lesson is, even if we fail in sense control initially, we need not feel guilty. We need not feel guilty because it's so powerful that a person is bound to fail in that attempt, and therefore one need not feel bad. So we have to learn by the experience of others. We need not commit the mistake ourselves. We can learn from the mistake of others. That's why it is not to see the mistake of others, problem of others, what they have happened, but study the problems and the experiences and the mistakes, the fall of others, by which we can learn ourselves. That is very, very important. So now I'll give you a story. One patient went to the doctor. Doctor is telling, you have severe respiratory problems. You have to quit smoking. Can you? Will you do that? The doctor asked the patient. You have severe respiratory problem. It is because you are smoking. The patient told, yes, doctor. Yes, Dr. Saab. It's not a big deal for me to quit smoking. I have done it several times in the past. So that means he has tried to control and he has broken that his own regulations many times. He has tried to control that smoking habit, give up the smoking habit, but the senses would force him to again smoke and he would get addicted to that. So yes, Dr. Saab, it's not a big deal for me. Quitting smoking is not so many times I've already done. I have done it several times in the past. So this small humor shows us that it's not so easy, that it will be quite difficult to control even one habit which we have done because of the sense organs. Sense of control is not that easy, from which we should learn two lessons. One lesson, if we fail initially, we need not feel guilty. That's very, very important. Don't feel, please, because that guilt conscience is the one which will weaken you. Please do not feel guilty, because sense control is difficult. It's not easy. So if you fail initially, please, but be sincere. You should be sincere. So if you fail in the attempt, you need not feel bad. But at the same time, what does Lord Krishna want to teach us? Lord Krishna wants to teach us another lesson. Since the senses are very powerful, it requires a lot of alertness. Be alert. That's all. First thing, it's not easy. So even if there is some failures in the beginning, do not worry. Don't feel guilty. Don't develop that guilt conscience. So, but second lesson is very important. Krishna wants to teach us that since they are powerful, since the sense organs are powerful, it requires a lot of alertness. Therefore, one side, we have to know that if you fail, you need not feel guilty. And another lesson we learn is that at the same time, we should be alert. So these are the two lessons. I think if we go through this story from the Bhagavata, then you may feel little confident and you will get a positive mode. You will start thinking positively and you will not feel guilty. Okay, I will tell you a beautiful story from the Bhagavata. So again, we shall repeat the words of Krishna, because if you memorize this lesson every time, so the warning of Krishna will, any time our mind goes to fall down from our oath, or we have taken some oath, we will do this, we will give up these things, we will give up anger, we will give up lust, we will give up greed, we will give up egoism. So we take so many resolves. So you may fail in that, but don't worry. The moment you can repeat this, memorize this stotra, this verse from Bhagavad Gita, then the alertness given by Krishna will help us. What is that? Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini Haranti prasabham manaha. The senses are so strong and turbulent, O son of Kunti, that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person endowed with discrimination and practicing self-control. So, please do not tempt fate. We have some sort of egoism. We get that pride, mother. Then we will go to do, oh, what will happen to me? Let me see, let me go. Nothing is going to happen. I can win. So don't tempt fate. Yeah, because our head is very strong. Our skull is hard. Should you go and test it by hitting against the rock? So don't test that. Don't test the strength of your skull by going and hitting it against the rock. So that's what. So sometimes foolishly we do all such things and put ourselves into a difficult situations. So Krishna is warning us that senses are so strong and turbulent. Yatataha api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. So that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person endowed with discrimination and practicing self-control. The senses are like wild horses that have been newly harnessed. They are impetuous and reckless, and hence disciplining them is an important battle that sadhakas have to fight. So here the Bhagavad Gita battle where all the Pandavas and other people who are on their side are fighting for righteousness. So what is the battle that we all have to fight? Should we go with the arms and ammunitions and go to the battlefield and fight? No, not necessarily. The soldiers will do that. Then where are we to fight? We have to fight the battlefield where we have to win the mind, our own mind and our own sense organs. So they are like the wild horses that have been newly harnessed. They are impetuous and they are reckless, and hence disciplining them is an important battle. This is the battle we have to face. So Arjuna is facing the battle of Mahabharata in Kurukshetra. So that Kurukshetra is still there. If you go to Delhi, from Delhi, if you go travel towards Haryana, so and on the way to Punjab, so in Haryana you get this Chandigarh. I'm sorry, on the way to Chandigarh, so you get this Kurukshetra. Even now it is maintained. The battlefield, that Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra is still maintained, and they have also maintained the place where Krishna, that Ratha in the Ratha stood and gave this great Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. That spot is also still maintained. If you go there, you can find everything there. So here, for Arjuna, that is the battle. Dharmakshetra, in the Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. For us, where is the Dharmakshetra? The battleground is within our own heart, our own mind, our own sense organs. We have to win them. Now, if you train them properly, your mind and sense organs will be your own friends. That's what Krishna tells in another verse in future. If you don't train them properly, if you don't train your mind, if you don't untrain mind, untrain senses will act like your enemies. They will put you into trouble. So now, at present, they are like our enemies. They are not heeding our words. They are not coming to control. So you have to fight the battle against that. So these sense organs of our mind are impetuous, reckless, and hence disciplining them is important battle. That is the battle that sadhakas, the spiritual aspirants, we all of us, that's why we have started studying Bhagavad Gita. So I have to fight within ourselves. Therefore, those desires of spiritual growth should carefully strive to tame the indulgent senses, which are colored with lust, greed, pride, and so many other qualities, anger, or else they have the power to sabotage and derail the spiritual process. Why spiritual process? Even our ordinary life, the worldly life also can be sabotaged. You may be a businessman, you may be a student, you may be working in an office, whatever. Your life will be derailed if you don't control your senses. So not only a spiritual aspirant, even an ordinary worldly man who is leading a life of enjoyment should do this, should control the senses. Only then he can enjoy his worldly life too. That's why it is very, very necessary for everybody. Therefore, those desirous of progress in any stages of life, any field, whether spiritual life, whether education, life of education, whether business, whether family life, anything, whichever, then what is very, very important in your life is should carefully strive to tame the indulgent senses, which are colored with all these six enemies: Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, all those things, Lobha. So, or else they have the power to sabotage and derail the spiritual process, not only spiritual process, any stages of your life, of, of even the most well intentioned yogi. So, he might be a very good yogi, he might be a great devotee, he might be a man of lot of control, good character, but even such a person, if he's little careless, if he thinks that if he gets that ego, I can do anything, so everything may become pell-mell. So Krishna is warning, be careful, do not be reckless, do not be tempting fate. So now, as I told you, I am going to take you through one story from Bhagavata. The Srimad Bhagavatam relates a story that perfectly illustrates. So by the lesson of all these people, the great rishis, last time I gave you the story of none other than the great Vishwamitra, the seer who gave us the Gayatri Mantra. Last time I took you through that story. Today I will take you another story of Srimad Bhagavatam. It relates a story that perfectly illustrates this statement of Sri Krishna. Where is it given? Canto 9, chapter 6. There you can find this story. There was a great sage in ancient times known as Saubhari. The name of that sage was Saubhari. He is mentioned not only in Bhagavatam, it is also his name. He is a rishi. Suppose he is a seer who has given us that mantra, discovered truths. So he is a seer, mantra drashtara. He is mentioned in the Rig Veda also. Not only in Bhagavatam, he is a rishi of the Rig Veda too. He is mentioned there in the Rig Veda where there is a mantra called Saubhari Sutra. So why am I mentioning that is, he's a great rishi, he's not an ordinary man. So you cannot just tell that he's an ordinary man, he fell. So let us see, there is also a scripture called Saubhari Samhita in his name. So he was not just an ordinary sage. Saubhari had attained such control over his body and mind and senses that he used to, what was the extent of tapasya, austerity he used to do? He used to be submerged, he used to submerge himself in water in river Yamuna, and there he used to meditate underwater for a long time. So he had the yogic power whereby he could submerge in water. He used to submerge himself in Yamuna. We all know that Yamuna river. It flows in Delhi. It starts from Himalayas, then it comes down, then it joins the Ganga. It flows separately up to the place called Prayagraj. So Prayag. So there is the Triveni Sangam. There it joins together with Ganga. You can see that color of the Yamuna. It is little darkish ash color, and Ganga will be a different color, white color, and this is dark in color, just like the body of Krishna, on which Lord Krishna played his sport in Vrindavan. On that bank, Yamuna, you know that Kali Mardana and other things used to play in that Yamuna river. Then Saraswati, another Guptagamini. All these three join together in this Prayag near Triveni Sangam. So there, now in this river Yamuna, this great sage had the capacity, yogic power, he could submerge in this Yamuna river and used to meditate underwater. So that was without breathing. So he could stop breathing for a long time, many days. He could be submerged in that Yamuna river and he would be meditating. So Saubhari had attained such control over his body that he used to submerge himself in the Yamuna river and meditate underwater. One day, while he was meditating under the water, he opened his eyes and saw what happened. Two fishes were mating. So when he saw that two fishes were mating, this sight carried away his mind and senses, and the desire for sexual association arose in him. He abandoned his spiritual practice and came out of the water, wondering how to fulfill his desire. At that time, the king of Ayodhya, we all know Ayodhya, it was the capital of Sri Ramachandra, where Sri Ramachandra ruled, and his birthplace and everything is there. So it was much earlier to Ramachandra. So at that time, the Ayodhya was ruled by the king Mandatha. His name was Mandatha, who was a very illustrious and noble ruler. He had, this Mandatha, the king of Ayodhya, had 50 daughters, 50 daughters. each more beautiful than the other. Saubhari approached the king and asked for the hand of one of the 50 princesses. Now, King Mandhata wondered about the sanity of the sage and thought to himself, an old man like this sage Saubhari wanting to get married to one of my young daughters. The king knew Saubhari to be a powerful sage, not ordinary sage, he had so much of yogic power. Then he feared that if he refused, the sage might curse him. But if he consented, the life of one of his daughters would be ruined. So he was in a dilemma. So he said, O Holy One, I have no objection to your request. Please take seat. I shall bring my 50 daughters before you, and whosoever chooses you will become yours in marriage. So in those days, they had the practice that you can't go and rush and get married to a princesses. So there was this thing called Swayamvara. So now the princess could choose her husband. So that system was called Swayamvara. She could choose. We all heard about the Draupadi Swayamvara, Sita Swayamvara, and so many other things. So like that, there was Swayamvara in those days. They could choose. So now the girls could choose the boy, So now he very carefully, tactfully told the Rishi that I will bring all the 50 princesses, my daughters. So if any one of them choose you, you can get married. Now he was very much sure that saying this old man, this sage, they would not choose. So now he could escape. Now the king, the Saubhari, the sage cannot curse me because that was the rules at that time. So I will bring all the 50 daughters. Whoever chooses you will be your wife. So in this dilemma, he hit upon a plan. So he said, Holy One, I have no objection to your request. Please take a seat. I shall bring my 50 daughters before you, and whosoever chooses you will become yours in marriage. The king was confident that none of his daughters would choose the old ascetic, and in this way he would be saved from the sage's curse. Saubhari, he was a great sage. He had so much of yogic power. Can't he understand the thought process which is going on in the mind of this king? He could read his mind. So he told, okay. Saubhari was all too aware of the king's intention. He could read his mind. He told the king that he would return the following day, next day. That evening, that yogi used his, Saubhari, the great sage, used his yogic power to turn himself into a handsome young man. Such a beautiful, such a handsome young man. Consequently, when he presented himself at the palace the next day, not one of the 50 princesses, the daughters of the king Mandhata, all the princesses, all the daughters chose him as their husband. He had told anyone, whoever chooses you, but here all the 50 daughters chose him. The king was now bound by the word he had given and was compelled to marry all his daughters to the sage. Now the king was concerned about the fights that would take place amongst the 50 sisters for one husband. So there will be fighting always amongst the daughters. So he was very much concerned what will happen to his daughters, 50 daughters fighting for one husband. So when he was very much worried and concerned, King Mandhata, now king was concerned about the fights that would take place amongst the 50 sisters, since they would have to share a husband. However, Saubhari, he could understand the plight of the king Mandhata and again used his yogic powers. Putting the king's apprehensions to rest, he assumed 50 forms. He, made himself into 50 different bodies he could create because of his yogic power. We all know this happened even with Lord Krishna. The Krishna, by his yogic power, he could make so many thousands of Krishnas and used to sports with the gopis in Vrindavan, and also used to live after he was married to so many 16,000 wives. He used to divide himself into so many different Krishnas and would live in everybody's house there. We all studied in Bhagavad, I think, recently during the Krishna Janmashtami. So this great sage, Saubhari, had that power. With this yogic power, he divided himself into 50 different bodies. So, putting the king's apprehension to rest, he assumed 50 forms and created 50 palaces for his wives. Not only he created 50 bodies, he created 50 palaces for his wives and lived separately with each one of them. In this manner, so you should imagine, because he had that yogic power, in this manner, he lived for thousands of years past. He could live for thousands of years because of yogic power. He could also give that thousands of years to his wives. So thousands of years passed by. Now the Purana, the Bhagavata Purana states that Saubhari had many children from each of them, and those children had further children until a tiny city had been created. So many children. Now one day suddenly, Saubhari, after thousands of years, Saubhari came to his senses. Suddenly one day, Saubhari came to his senses and exclaimed, he felt so bad. What is this? What have I done? I had gone so near to God realization. Almost I was very near to realizing Parabrahma Swarupa, Atmaikya Bodha, to realize my identity with the Atma Swarupa, my real nature, to realize God. So near. And just one slip of the senses, diving, submerging in Yamuna, I used to meditate and I saw those fish mating and my sense lost control. And what happened? See, where am I? Thousands of years have gone. From where to where? Shankaracharya, in one of his works, he tells that Kandukena. So suppose you have a ball, rubber ball. So by mistake, let that ball fall on one step. There are maybe some 15 or 20 steps leading to a terrace. So suppose that ball, that rubber ball, somehow by slip or something falls on the first step. What happens? Then you do not know what will be the time to go down to the last step. It will be automatic. No need of putting your effort, no need of what you call teaching a monkey to climb the tree. You need not put a ladder to the monkey to climb a tree. Likewise, you need not teach the senses to go down. That is its natural tendency to drag you down. So now the Shankaracharya gives that example of Kanduka, that ball, rubber ball put on the first step. By mistake, if that slips even without your knowledge, then that will be there at the ground. The last step it will go up without your any effort at all. Likewise here too, small slip, the senses can drag you to that so much. Thousands of years have passed. It was almost near the verge of realization. That great sage, I explained how great that sage was. He had so many powers. And see what happened, just one slip. So now after thousands of years, he suddenly awoke. And what happened? Lo, where am I? The sage was very much perturbed. One day Saubhari came to his senses and exclaimed, oh, aho, imam pashyata me vinasham. Aho, imam pashyata me vinasham. Bhagavata 9.650, verse 51. What is his statement? The Saubhari is telling, aho, see, look at it, aho, see, imam pashyata me vinasham, see my destruction, how I have destroyed my life. See, look at my destruction. The sage is telling all of you, all of us. What is he telling? Oh humans, those of you who make plans to attain happiness through material acquisitions, be careful, oh human beings. Look at my degradation, where I was and where am I now. I created 50 bodies by my yogic powers and lived with 50 women for thousands of years. and yet the senses did not experience fulfillment. They only kept hankering for more. Learn from my downfall and be warned not to venture in this direction, tells Saubhari. Saubhari is warning all the aspirants, spiritual aspirants, be careful. I was just on the verge of very near to realization of my identity with the Atman, and lo, there was a slip. So my senses dragged me. Thousands of years, all my yogic powers lost. But still, I couldn't fulfill the desires of the senses. So that's why so many examples of Vishwamitra, Saubhari, everywhere it is, all the Puranas are lit with that fall. So Lord Krishna is telling that you need not be afraid of these things, but you should be careful. If you take recourse to the feet of the Lord, if you surrender at the feet of the Lord will not give you up. If you have devotion, that's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in the Bhakti Yoga, beginning of Bhakti Yoga, when Arjuna asks him the question, which is greater? There is nothing greater or lower, but Krishna tells that Bhakti Yoga is better. Why? Because the common mass, it's very difficult to take up Gnana Marga and other Margas, because it's very, very difficult. You have to depend solely upon your self-effort. Any small slip, you will go down like this. But if you take recourse to Bhakti Yoga, the Lord will be there always with you in the form of your Ishta Devata. So it's very easy. It's an easy process. Not only that, if there are chances of slippery, if there is anything that the Maya or this senses can drag you, if you pray to the Lord will be always there as an ideal, as a personal God. He's not impersonal now. He's personal. He'll be there with you to protect you. He will hold you by the hand and protect you. So that is the advantage of Bhakti Yoga. So that's why Krishna is telling, first he warns us. Be careful. Don't tempt fate. Don't go to test the strength of your skull, because the skull is very hard. Don't go and hit it against the rock. But if you take recourse, if you offer everything at the feet of the Lord, if you have devotion, the Lord will protect you. He will not allow you to fall. That's so you need not be afraid. So now, what is this warning from Lord Krishna, that he's telling Yatato Hepi Kaunteya Purushasya Vipaschitaha Indriyani Pramathini Haranti Prasabam Manaha. He's telling all the difficulties in the path of sense control. But sense control is not that easy, from which we should learn two lessons. First lesson is, even if you fail initially, you need not feel guilty, you need not develop guilt conscience, because it is so powerful that a person who may be even a great and a strong person, intelligent person, is bound to fall in that attempt, and therefore one need not feel bad. But at the same time, Lord Krishna wants to teach another lesson too to us. And what is that? Since they are so powerful, since the senses are very powerful, it requires a lot of alertness. Therefore, in this teaching, Lord Krishna makes us understand, one should know that if you fall, if you fail, you need not feel guilty. And another lesson we learn is that same time we should be alert. Therefore, alert with regard to our sensory operation, what we talk, what we hear, what we do, what we move, with regard to all of them, be alert. So again, that word of, in the short, Ramakrishna, the whole this verse, as Krishna he has told, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha, as the avatar Ramakrishna is telling, Sadho Savdhan, spiritual aspirant, be alert, be careful, Sadho Savdhan, attention, Savdhan, be alert. Same thing Lord Krishna is telling. So how to connect the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and Bhagavad Gita? Sadhu Savdhan, Lord Krishna is telling, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabam manaha. So therefore, alert with regard to our sensory operations, what we talk, what we hear, what we move with regard to all of them. Therefore, Krishna says, Indriyani Pramathini. The sense organs are very, very powerful. They are like the, so what is that Pramathini? Where does that word derived from? Pramathini. So they are like the churning rod. So in olden days, nowadays also in the village, if you go there, they'll be having a lot of cows in their houses. They will have that milking process. It's not just the modern dairy. So in the villages, still that old method is there. So after they gather milk, so if it will get spoiled, so what? How are they to preserve it? They will make it into curds. It's not exactly yogurt of the Western country. Curds is completely different. So that is very healthy to the body. Curds are very. It is a probiotic. So it will have that. It is lactic acid, but it has a lot of bacteria in it which are friendly to our guts. So if we take a lot of curds, then your digestive system will be very good probiotic. But those bacteria are very friendly to your digestive system. So it will keep your whole digestive system very cool and without any, they will kill all the other bacteria which are inimical or enemies to our system. So that's why it's called probiotic curds. So then curds also may get spoiled, it may become too sour. So what do? They'll put this big churning rod, long churning rod. They will keep that pot of that curds near the pillar or something for the support. And there'll be hook and that rod will be put into that thread, and there are two threads like that. They will churn it like this. So that churning rod will go into the curds and it will be churning, making that sound. Chur, chur. They'll be churning it. So when it is churned and churned and churned and churned, when that curd is being churned, then butter, navanita, will come up. It will get collected. The watery portion will be separated, and the buttery portion, the important essence of that curds will come up as butter. Then they will preserve that butter. So if it is kept in water, that even though it is sour and other things, so that butter will stay for many days. So it can be kept safely. The butter can be preserved, and it can be used. Then even that butter may get spoiled. So what do? They will boil it nicely. So when you boil it, becomes clarified butter, ghee. So that ghee can be still preserved for many, many months. So that's how in India that is done. So they use this churning rod, mathana. It's called, the process is called mathana. It has come from this word pramathini. You can see here Lord Krishna is using the word. Why did I give that explanation? To show you that what is meant by pramathini. Krishna is using that word Indriyani Pramathini. The sense organs are very, very powerful. They are like the churning rod. This churning rod. Pramathini, like the churning rod. So Mathana, it comes from the verb Mathana. What is this Mathana? Process of churning. So from this using of the churning rod, that is Pramathi in Sanskrit. Matha is also the Sanskrit word. So you know that in English, most of the English words, because all the European languages have come from Sanskrit. That's why it's called Indo-European group of languages. Sanskrit is the mother of most of the European languages, and many languages. It's the mother of many languages too. So you can see many words of English coming from Sanskrit. So what is one of this thing we call maths? Mathematics has come from maths. So where did that maths come from? This matha, from this word churning. So mathematics will be churning your mind and brain. Then you get mathematics, all the problems, to solve so many problems. So the matha. So from that matha, the word maths has come. M-A-T-H, maths in mathematics, which you get. So here, that is a churning. That's called from that word matha has come from mathana. So it is derived from the Sanskrit word matha. Ninth configuration, parasmai pada. So how does that derived? Mathanati, mathanitaha, mathanita, to churn, or mathi means a churner, a churning rod, pramathi. So very powerful churning rod. So the sense organs, each sense organ is just like a very powerful churning rod. It will churn our whole personality, our mind and everything. So it's a powerful churning rod. And now each sense organ, a sense organ is a powerful churning rod. What is that powerful churning rod? doing now. How many churning rods are there in us? We have 5 of them, not one. One can cause so much of churning in our mind and disturb it. Then if there are 5 constantly attacking us, churning our mind, then what will be our condition? So they are all powerful churning rod. And how many churning rods are there? We have 5 of them. And all these 5 churning rods churn. What do they churn? Manaha. That's what you can see. Indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha. Lord Krishna is telling Manaha. What are they going to churn? Our mind, Manaha. So they churn the mind into violent disturbance. So now you can understand clearly how they are going to disturb your mind. The Indriyas are the cause. They are the one. Why do we get disturbed? Why our mind is going here and there and all the problems, worries, stress, strain? It is caused by these Indriyas, the churning rods. So now let us see how do they disturb and how we can overcome. Why is Krishna taking us all through this? Only to make us understand. See, this is all pure psychology. You can understand your mind, your indriyas. What are the cause of the disturbance in your mind? How we can overcome that? Then finally, how can you become strong and control your senses? That's very, very important. So let us go through all those things and study our mind, study the sense organs and make our mind strong so we can train them and we can go towards realizing our own nature. So then what is that? Here Krishna is trying to tell us, so they can churn the mind into violent disturbance. How we are disturbed? How are we disturbed by this thing? Let us take the example of ears. A person will scold us, tell some words, use some words. So we remember that word all through our life. Somebody has scolded me or used some words. I will never forget all my life. I'll be thinking of that word. See, just one word. It is just, what is that word? It is just some sound, that's all. That sound has gone through my ears and gone to my mind, and I identify that with my ego and see the havoc it causes. All through my mind, the mind is disturbed. I am disturbed. The moment I see that person, I remember that sound, what he has told, and I get angry, I get disturbed. The whole process will start into violent disturbance will be taking place. See, one mathana, one churning rod, the ears, the sound can cause so much of thing. So, in fact, see, just some words. That's all. What are the scoldings? What are the things which we hear? Even softly may tell something, but they're just words. Why should I get disturbed because of that words? It is just sound. Go back to the original thing. It's just sound. So you should stop the that pramati, the churning process there at the level of the senses itself. You have to control that. Then you will not be disturbed. So now they can churn our mind into violent disturbance. So we took one of the example of the ears. Somebody told me some words. In fact, most of the problems are words. They are just words. Now, if this is the case with one sense organ called ears, then what about my eyes? So eyes are also as powerful as the ears. They are the most powerful things. And what about the nose? What about the tongue? And what about the skin? This sense, the touch. They are also as powerful and as dangerous as the ears and the eyes. The ears and the eyes are most powerful. Therefore, all the 5 organs are most powerful. Therefore, Lord Krishna is telling Haranti Manaha. What is this Haranti? They can take away, they can steal, they can take away your mind from study of Bhagavad Gita, study of Vedanta. You have heard so many good things from righteousness. It can take away from righteousness. So it can take away from the good things of life. So Haranti Prasabam Manaha, forcefully it can take you away. They are very powerful. All the 5 organs. Haranti Manaha. They can take away your mind from any subject, any good things. Now you might have heard Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, Puranas. You have practiced so much of japa. You have heard so many good things from the Guru. But these sense organs can steal away, take away your mind. So one word, while you have finished the class, now Bhagavad Gita, you are hearing Bhagavad Gita, your mind will be in a very good state. Now your child, your son or daughter, you tell something to her or him, then he will not obey, he will tell something back and go away. It was just one word. Then all the study of Bhagavad Gita is gone. All that you have heard is gone. It will take away your mind, you will get disturbed. Just one word. All the study of Bhagavad Gita is gone. Haranti prasabam manaha. Forcibly it will take away from all that. What has happened to all the study? All the good things you have learnt in your life, everything is gone. Everything is distracted. So if someone says something, you get upset, and he said that to me. Now listening to that, all Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita, everything, all the great ones have taught, the learning, the reading had gone waste. One word can disturb us violently and put us into trouble and can make us forget everything we have learned all these years. And therefore, Lord Krishna is telling, Anaha haranti prasabham. Forcibly it will take away. It takes away the mind from where? From these great teachings, from the learnings of Upanishad, from Vedanta, from Bhagavad Gita, the words of the Guru, from the words of our elders, father and mother. So I will forget it. Now you can see how it can make you forget. Why you forget yourself? How can you forget? You have that Atman within you. You have that powerful Atman within you. The Lord is sitting in your heart, and these Indriyas can take your mind away from that. By hearing all the good things, by meditating, by doing the japa, reading the so many good books, then you are slowly going towards that goal. Suddenly, these Indriyas, even just one, can drag you away, your mind away. So that's why Krishna is telling, careful, alert. We forget, we tend to forget temporarily. So mind becomes violent. So it becomes just like a violent animal, either like a tiger or a scorpion or a snake. You can take anything, any example. Then what is the use of all this study? What is the use of all these things? Now it will make, though it may fall again, do not be worried. Get up again, strive again, try again. Take the help of the Lord, pray to Him, and then you'll become more stronger and stronger. Then you can take all your indriyas into control. So you'll get the real peace of mind. Try to keep your mind in balanced state. Then all the teachings of Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, Upanishad, all these things will start sinking into your mind. Now, that's why in this final portion of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is dealing with two topics. What is that? One is Sthira Prajna Lakshana. What is that Sthira Prajna Lakshana? The characteristic feature of a perfect man who is perfected, who has realized the goal, who has realized the truth, who has become perfect. A perfect man's characteristic nature. What is his nature? Then another thing is Sthira Prajna Sadhanani. How we ordinary people can, by sadhana, attain that perfect state. That is Sthira Prajna Sadhana. The spiritual practices by which I can attain to that perfection. So Lord Krishna is dealing these two things. One is the nature of a perfected person who has already reached the perfection, the characteristic feature, because Arjuna asked the question, Sthita Pragnasya Kabasha Samadhistasya Keshava. Then Krishna started answering, Sthita Dihi Kim Prabhashate in the Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parthamanogatan Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sthita Pragnastodochade. So these are all Sthira Pragna, perfected man, perfected mind, was realized the truth, his characteristic feature. But at the same time, Krishna is also teaching us how can we reach that Sthita Pragna or Sthira Pragna Sadhana. Sadhana means by which practices I can attain to that perfection. How can I control my mind? because the main impediment is my sense organs. That's why Krishna is telling all those things. What is the impediment which is not allowing me to realize the truth which is within the teachings of the Upanishad, the teachings of the Vedanta, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita? Why is it not fructifying? Because of this trouble of the Indriyas. So be alert about Indriya. Then also now Krishna in future will teach us how to control them, how to overcome them. That's why he's bringing us slowly, step by step, he's bringing us to that process and making our mind stronger. He is giving the process, the sadhana. For the spiritual aspirant, he's giving the spiritual path, how you can strengthen your mind, control your senses. So now Sthitapragna Lakshanani and Sthitapragna Sadhanani. These are the two things. Sri Krishna in this final portion of the second chapter is dealing with these two topics. So Sthirapragna Lakshanani means the natural behavior or traits of the person who has assimilated the teaching. So that assimilation of the teaching is very, very important. So the prefix sthira or sthita is used to indicate the assimilation of this teaching. So why are we not assimilating this teaching? Because we have not won over the indriyas completely. Similarly, just as the assimilated food alone will nourish a person, the assimilated food will alone nourish a person. Otherwise, how much ever food you may eat, if your mind is disturbed, you are always in stress and strain, you are thinking too much, you are worrying too much, your mind is worried, troubled with so many problems, then all your food will not get assimilated. It will be used for this thinking only. You see, that's why people who are stressed, who have a lot of problems, they'll be consuming too much of food. Because all the food, instead of getting assimilated and becoming strength to your body, it will be going in this worrying process. It will be not assimilated. It will go out through this worrying process. That's why assimilation of the thoughts of Vedanta, what we are learning, Bhagavad Gita, is very, very important. That is the meaning here of sthira or sthita. So that prefix sthira is used to indicate the assimilation of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita which we are learning. Just as assimilated food alone will nourish a person, similarly the assimilated Vedantic teachings, assimilated Bhagavad Gita teachings alone will be of practical use. Then only we can control our senses. So we have mentioned this in our previous classes. This assimilation is nothing but, what is then this assimilation? Converting the knowledge which we have gained. This knowledge of Atman we are learning in the second chapter, knowledge of Parabrahman, knowledge of Atman. We're gaining what is this thing of the Atman, Swarupa of Atman. It is Shashvata, it is eternal, it is all pervading, it is all omniscient, omnipresent, then it is infinite. All those things we are learning about our real nature, Atman. So that has to be assimilated. So that assimilated food alone will nourish the person. Then only, similarly, what is this assimilation here? This Vedantic knowledge, the knowledge of the Atman, the Parabrahman, we have learned from Lord Krishna in the beginning of the second chapter. So we have to assimilate it. What is that assimilation? Converting this knowledge, which is at the intellectual level, into emotional strength. That is assimilation. It should become a force which can control our all the indriyas. So we have to convert that intellectual knowledge. We have gained the knowledge that is to be assimilated into emotional strength. An emotionally strong mind will not be swayed by these indriyas. So once you become emotionally strong, once the intellectual knowledge which you have gained by Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta and other things, learnt about your own self, the Atman, now it is at the intellectual level, intellectual conviction, it is to be converted into emotional strength. Then the mind cannot steal away. Haranti prasabam manaha, then the indriyas cannot control you. Then you can control the indriyas. That's why Lord Krishna is telling us how to strengthen how to control your senses by converting that intellectual, assimilating that knowledge of Atman into emotional strength. So from the intellectual level, you have to convert it into emotional strength. An emotionally strong mind will not be swayed by this kama, the lust, krodha, anger, lobha, that is the greed, moha, attachment, madaha, pride, the ego, matsarya, jealousy. So all these enemies which are caused by that indriya, they cannot sway us. They will not cause the disturbance, violent disturbance in our mind. So it cannot then churn your mind. It cannot disturb your mind violently. Such an emotionally strong mind is called sthita prajna or sthira prajna mind. And how will he conduct himself? That is the topic. That is one topic. And the second topic is how the knowledge should be converted or assimilated. First, the knowledge has to be gained. How is it to be? There is only one process to gain that knowledge. What is that process? Only one method is listening to the scripture, Shravana, from a competent guide, Guru. So listening the knowledge, Shravana, of your own self and of God through a competent Guru, guide. That is the only method. Shravana is the only method. Learning the scriptures through the guidance of the competent Guru. There is no other method of receiving knowledge. Knowledge is received only by listening to the scriptures from a competent guide. That is our Guru. Krishna tells this in the 4th chapter. He will mention about the Guru in the 4th chapter. So when it comes, what is that Sri Krishna tells in the 4th chapter? In the 34th shloka, in the 4th chapter, the 34th verse, Krishna is telling, Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And this receiving or reception of the knowledge is not only enough. It doesn't stop there. The Guru may give you the knowledge. Reception of the knowledge is then, it doesn't stop there. We have our project work, our homework to do. What is that? Guru can help you only up to some extent in this matter, giving you the knowledge. Guru can go only up to the transference of the knowledge. But the conversion of the knowledge, assimilation of the knowledge into emotional strength, that the Shishya alone has to do. The spiritual aspirant alone has to do. Then after that, Guru cannot help you. You have to do it by your self-effort, by your sincerity, by your sadhana. You have to convert that. Guru can only encourage you. Now, the question is, what should I do to convert this knowledge? What should I do to assimilate this knowledge given by the Guru and the scriptures into emotional strength? In Vedantic knowledge, in Vedantic terminology, it is called Nididhyasanam, meditation. Nididhya, Vedantic meditation. Nididhyasanam. Here, Lord Krishna prescribes 3 disciplines for assimilation. So that Nididhyasanam, how should you do this Vedantic meditation? Nididhyasanam, Lord Krishna is giving us 3 disciplines. What are the 3 disciplines? The first discipline is sensory restraint, sense control, sense mastery, sense regulation. What is the purpose of sense restraint or control? Because sense organs are very powerful. It can steal away your mind. They are the doors through which alone this world, external world, enters your mind. Because sense organs are the doors. Why Lord Krishna has told that the first step is, amongst the 3 disciplines, the first step is sense control, sense regulation. Why is it? Because the sense organs are like doors through which alone this external world, the sense objects, enter our mind. My mind does not have direct access to the world until unless through these 5 doors, sense organs. It can never, our mind, we cannot contact the world directly. It requires these 5-fold channels. The world either enters in the form of sound through my ears, or in the form of smell or taste or touch. The 5-fold universe enters my mind through these 5-fold gates, entrance called sense organs, and every part of the universe, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, is capable of entering my mind and agitating me. One word from your son or your daughter, or somebody, your boss, or your wife, or your husband, or your father or mother, at a wrong time, wrong place, can disturb you. So, Vedantic terminology, sound disturbance, it can cause you. The cause of your upset is nothing but a few words. Words are nothing but disturbance. So, just like a bug enters your ears, whether that person who has scolded you or told some words might not have intended to tell that, then we start, because I associate with my ego, because of my past samskaras, my old memories, I will start commenting on that in a different way. He might have not meant, that person might have not meant that. We will have our own wild imagination and start thinking so many things and giving so many commentaries. Then we will also give yakhyana, sub commentaries. So telling that it might be this reason, all imagination, wild imagination. Maybe this is intended like this. You might have thought about me like this. So then we will also give sub commentaries, footnotes, and everything. Then it becomes a mental breakdown. What was the cause? It was just few words from a person. He might have not intended. It was all in my mind. I just went on imagining so many things. Similarly, if this is the case with one words from colors, sight, so the world is capable of disturbing our mind. When the mind is disturbed, you cannot retain the Vedantic knowledge. So now, because we have crossed our time limit, I'm going to stop it here. We'll continue the same discussion of the 60th verse in the next class, but we will also try to enter into the next verse, that is 61st verse. So we will continue with the discussion of 60th verse, and we will also go to the 61st verse in our next discussion, that's next Wednesday. So today we will stop the discussion. We will see if there are any questions. Yeah, elaborate on tough alertness. All this, that is what now I am discussing about. Lord Krishna only, I need not elaborate. Lord Krishna himself is elaborating all these next verses. Krishna, that is what you call ध्यायते विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषु उपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो विजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. Like that, the whole next process what we are learning is Krishna will elaborate on that. So we will be describing about that. So all your questions will be answered in the future. Lord Krishna himself will answer. That is the answer to your question. Please explain how to remove fear of death with some more examples. Okay. So that will also come in future. We will take up that matter. The fear of death is we want to live eternally. Fear of death is I am afraid of losing this body. What is this fear of death? I will die. What is that death? You're giving up this body. But when you start identifying with the Lord, when you start identifying with your Atman, which is eternal, then there is no fear of death. It's not as simple as that. It is tough. You have to meditate on God. That is what Krishna is telling, that if you identify yourself with the Atman, with the Parabrahma Swarupa, with God, then that fear, that is the only way of coming out of that. Parandrushtva nivartate. Krishna is told earlier. Parandrushtva, by realizing God only, you can overcome all this fear, all this attachment, all the problems will be solved. The more you go nearer towards God, the more you think of God, just like how did our great Parikshit Raja, he was cursed to be killed by the snake. He had so much of fear of death. He heard about the Bhagavata, the different sports by none other than the great Shuka Maharshi. So the 7th day, just 7 days he heard this Bhagavatam. Within 7 days, the 7th day, the next day or that very day was his death. He told, I have lost the fear of death by hearing the great Leelas of the Lord. So I have overcome the fear of death, Parikshit told. So you can overcome that easily by thinking, meditating on God, identifying yourself with Atman. You can overcome the fear of death. So we will elaborate. Already Krishna has told. In future, in the Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna will tell it again. So I think all the questions are answered. Now we will end this session with the one of the meditation verses. And as usual, tomorrow we have early morning, that is Thursday, 6:30 South African time and 10 o'clock Indian time. The study of Great Master, Life of Sri Ramakrishna, written by Sharadanandaji Maharaj. Friday also, Thursday, Friday morning, these classes will be there, the discussion will be there. Then Saturday evening, we have again Bhagavad Gita classes where we are discussing the first part of the second chapter, that is the nature of Atman. We are studying about the nature of God and everything there. We are getting the knowledge. So Sunday, Monday again, there will be early morning study of Great Master. Then Monday evening we have the study of Science of Worship. Tuesday we have Vivek Chudamani. Wednesday again we'll be back about Bhagavad Gita, this 60th verse and 61st verse. All are welcome to that discussion. Om Mukam karoti vachalam bhangum langhayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramanandamadhavam. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.